Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday. I'm going to take a while for me to get used to that. I've been doing a show every Tuesday for the last 4 or 5 years, and providing specific content to driving your business, your relationships, your health, all from the state of how your brain works, how your thought processes function, to be able to disrupt patterns, to be able to create deeper alliances, all kinds of things. And we decided recently in the new year that we were going to change days. We were going to rebrand the particular session that it is. It used to be called the Power Session, which was a little confusing because it's not the same as the power sessions that we teach as a part of our coaching program, as one of the most powerful systems to use to eliminate procrastination, be more present in the now, be able to work less and get more done, create more income, all that kind of stuff. So we asked our audience last week what they would name it. And of course, disruption came a lot because that's what I do. That's what I love to do. Is I don't want to come on any, hey, Don, good to see you. Thanks for making the jump over to Wednesdays. We've got Charlie on here too. It's so good to see you all. Thanks so much for following me over to this day, this time. So it'll be same value. We've got all new look and feel to the particular session. It's now Disrupt Your Week. So bear with me if I refer to this as the power session or if I talk about it being Tuesday. I'm just really used to all of those things, but I'm excited to be with you today. We're going to be taking on in our inaugural session, in our first session here, about disrupting your week. We're going to be taking on one of my favorite topics, which is sales. I am a massive fan of sales, not because I've always been some hardcore, just love to get after it salesperson. Quite the opposite. But it is something that I do love to disrupt patterns on. It's something that I love to teach for a number of reasons that we'll get into today. Probably the first and foremost is because I believe that sales is the highest form of connection that there is. The opportunity to be able to really understand where it came from, how it works, because there are a lot of us who have been conditioned, who have had experiences with people who didn't really understand what sales really meant. And we allowed that to shape our opinion of what it was, that it's transactional, that it's just all business, that it's about closing people, that it's about just making the almighty dollar and whatever it might be in terms of your experiences. So I want to spend today building out a little bit of framework because we are all selling all the time. And I know you've heard that before. I know that's nothing new. In fact, borderline cliche, if not over the top cliche, that we are always selling and we are all salespeople. Okay. So we get the opportunity to be able to frame this though, because although we get that conceptually, although we understand it, are we really taking the opportunity to chew on it? Are we really getting the opportunity to move it from the conceptual to the contextual, to get it into the application of our lives so that it can benefit us? Because it's not just, yeah, I get it. That's not going to cut it here, okay? That's not going to cut it for any of these sessions that you get to participate here every Wednesday as we dive into disrupting your week, disrupting your thinking patterns, disrupting what you believe to be true right now. Not that I want to challenge any of your values, but I want to challenge what your brain believes is true about your life. I want to challenge what your brain believes is true about what you're capable of, or what success is going to feel like, or what it takes to get there. Because if you're not consistently on your way to where you want to be, and in an unstoppable fashion, and enjoying every step along the way and every element of it in its proper context and joy and fulfillment, and finding balance in the areas of your life, then rock and roll. I would love to know who you are. I would love to send a team of scientists over to study you and to discover how on earth you got access to this incredible secret, and go from there. But I say that somewhat in jest because that's just not how life works. We're built to experience conflict and contradiction and hypocrisy. We're built in this never-ending constant battle between two forces of order and chaos. And yet both are good and both are bad, right? If that wasn't a disruption, okay? As we start considering our lives, we start thinking about what we're experiencing, what we're going through, what we want to accomplish, what we're doing. There's a constant push and pull, constant conflict, constant contradiction. And it is finding this calibration, it's finding this rhythm and this balance in the middle of it all, and finding a place to thrive within it that will allow you to be tremendously successful, allow you to continue to grow. I heard something recently that absolutely rocked my world, and I'll leave it at this, and then we'll jump right into sales. And that is in a book I was listening to. They said that the definition of spiritual immaturity is believing that you will be exonerated from struggle, and spiritual immaturity being the primary cause of people not becoming successful. Believing that I know that I need to struggle to be successful, but how much do I have to struggle until I'm successful? You know, how many laps do I have to run before I'm a track star? How many practices do I have to have? How many people do I have to talk to before I'm a leader and whatever? And we are set up and conditioned and even neurologically built for finish lines and arrivals. It just doesn't work that way. That's not how life works. That's not how we are built spiritually. That's not how we're built neurologically. That's not how we're built physiologically. We are a constant evolution, constant opportunity. As Donnie just said beautifully there, it's a flow that we tap into, and then we unconsciously sabotage and fall out of, and then we tap back into it, see if we can stay there a little bit longer before we unconsciously sabotage it and fall out of it. And being able to believe that there's some trick out there, there's some book, there's some speaker, there's some idea that's going to get you into the flow that Donnie's talking about and stay there forever. It just doesn't exist. That's like, as I've said before, trying to chase habits so that you don't need habits anymore. Okay, we want to be able to start focusing on being in creation, finding that balance, that calibration, that flow between order and chaos, and not overdoing one or the other, and stop being so judgmental about what's good, what's bad, and all that kind of stuff in terms of observing our experience. There are certainly good choices and bad choices, morally good, ethically good, morally bad, or ethically good, ethically bad, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not here to argue any kind of I forget the term, nihilism. Okay, I certainly believe in that kind of code, but I also believe that you are not your thoughts, and the sooner you can surrender that judgment and just allow yourself to observe them, the more successful you're going to be. So what do you say we jump into sales? Let's set a couple of ground rules here to help you start reframing and disrupting your perspective of sales. I already shared the first one with you, and that is that sales is the highest form of connection that there is. It is an opportunity to make it completely about someone else. How unselfish is that, to make it completely about someone else? The most successful salespeople in the world, meaning the ones who make an incredible income from doing it, but from doing it in a worthy way, meaning they add value to the world. And there's no limit on that. Like, oh, if you make more than $1 million a year, you're not selling in a good way, because you can only sell good and make a certain amount of money, which is funny because you'd be shocked how many of you believe something like that without realizing you believe it. You have a thermostat, as it's been called in the past, of how much money you can make and not feel guilty like you're leveraging other people and you're standing on their shoulders to be more successful. So pay attention to that. So we want to be able to clear the palette. We want to be able to start with a clear canvas and understand that sales is connection at its deepest point. Does it have strategic elements? Yes, because we all have so many layers, so much conditioning, so much fear and doubt we're working through. Every one of us, no matter what someone looks like, we've all got it. And part of making it all about them is helping them get past some of those things, work through some of their own barriers, which you are not in a position to do unless you can make it all about them. Because otherwise you're making it about you, about them, which just gets complicated and confusing, and we end up leaving the conversation feeling icky, and like the kind of icky you can't shower off. So that's number one. Sales is the highest form of connection. Number two is sales is an exchange of value. That's all it is. Okay, when sales started in the beginning, it was bartering. Okay, I had a cow that made milk, and you had chickens that made eggs. You needed milk, I needed eggs. So I had something of quality and of value because I wanted to receive something of quality and of value, and we exchanged. And it felt awesome, felt harmonious. It felt beautiful. And then it continued to expand from there. However, at some point along the way, the idea of currency was introduced. The idea of something that was not a necessity, something that you didn't have to, like, I can't eat gold, but somewhere along the way, someone decided that gold would stand in place as currency, so that if I had a cow that made milk and you needed milk, but I didn't need the eggs that your chicken made, that you could have a universal currency that would allow me to give you milk, you give me something that would hold the place of that exchange so that I can go get it from someone else. Well, it sounds brilliant. Sounds amazing that we don't have to rely on a direct exchange of value to be able to go, but it also opened the door for manipulation. It opened the door to value the currency rather than the end value, rather than the actual exchange that was occurring. It gave short-sighted, manipulative opportunities that some people have taken advantage of, others have not, but it started giving sales a bad name for those that did. So we want to understand that sales is the highest form of connection, and we want to get back to realizing that it is simply an exchange of value. And let's start expanding our mind and expanding our perspective of what value is. What is value? Well, value is time, effort, insight, and products, services, messages, whatever it might be. We want to be able to start opening up our eyes to the value they have to offer, the value we have to offer, and understanding that although we've seen people pursue, the coffee closers of the almighty dollar, of the currency, sales was never about the currency. It was about an integrity-based exchange of value, and that's what we're looking for. Now, you've got to start with something first. So let's get a little tactical. In order for you to sell like a coach, which the reason I put that there is because coaches don't sell products, okay? They sell themselves. You're going to be working with them. For me, I don't work with anyone for less than 6 months. So I've got 6 months to demonstrate the value that we exchanged. I've got 6 months where I am going to be called to the carpet to prove that it was worth their investment. So I don't get to just give them a widget and then run off. And even if you are selling widgets, that kind of relationship is still beneficial. Even if you're selling whatever product, you're selling makeup, it's a relationship is powerful, because if you can build a relationship with them and then you partner with them, which is the key to sales, a partnership, not a transaction. You partner with them to then create a relationship with your makeup. Guess what they do? They buy your makeup. And you continue to nurture that relationship with you and with the makeup, and you create this triangular vortex of power that makes them fall even more in love with you, fall even more in love with the makeup. And when that happens, they use it more often. When they use it more often, they buy it more often. You make more money with less effort. That's a beautiful thing when you understand that at core, and there's nothing to feel guilty about there, because you're honoring the relationship. There's a real integrity-based value of exchange. So first and foremost, you got to feel good about what you're selling. Now, we'll talk about in just a minute the difference between feeling good about what you're selling and feeling good about selling it, okay? That's an interesting conundrum. That's an interesting challenge that a lot of people face, especially those that are really passion-driven and naturally empathetic. It almost feels like you're changing channels when it comes time to sell. You're just talking to someone, connecting with them, and then you're like, okay, this is where I was trained to ask for the sell or get the transaction, and you just feel this massive shift in energy. We don't want that to happen, because it doesn't need to. It's not like, okay, this is my connection hat, now I've got to put on my business hat. No, it's the same hat. It's all connection, as long as it's impossible to compensate for not having a worthy income generating vehicle, meaning what you're selling has got to add value to the world. It's got to add real value to people. Some of it's going to be obvious to other people and the value that it provides. Others, it's not going to be as obvious. So we can't let the world in general abroad determine how we feel about what we're selling, because no matter how good it is, okay, and it could be good for everyone, but only 100,000 out of 7 billion, 8 billion, whatever it is now, are going to understand its value. But that's okay, because you can make a ridiculous living off the 100,000 that do see its value. But you've got to understand the value. You've got to also understand the difference between feeling good about what you're selling versus feeling good about selling it, because that's kind of reverse polarity. We want to address those separately. But we can't address most people's problem, and that is not how they feel about their product or service, but how they feel about selling it. We want to address that. We want to dive into that. That's critical. That's important to being able to unleash your potential in sales. However, we're not going to get there with any kind of relevance, any kind of substance, if we can't feel good about what we're selling and be willing to bring that to the arena, because it will be tested. I love Og Mandino's Scroll 3 and the Greatest Salesman in the World, talking about bulls being tested in the fight arena. And their bravery is tested by how many times they're willing to charge despite the sting of the blade that they run into. What a beautiful description of sales. You've got to come in with a connection to what you want to provide to people. You will want to know that it is worthy because you will be tested in the arena. There will be times where it'll be so much easier to say, oh, I don't want them to think this about me. I don't want them to think that I'm pushy. I don't want them to think that I'm salesy. And we know every one of those starts with I. Don't go into the arena focused on you. Go into the arena ready to prove how you feel about what you're representing. Because it doesn't matter if you can't hold to it, hold true in the arena. If you can't hold true on the battlefield, then what are you fighting for? Why are you in the game in the first place? Well, as long as I can, once I get in front of someone, it goes really well. It's great, but I have a hard time getting on social media. This is not my thing. I have a hard time reaching out and making a list of people and calling through them. And that I don't want to be that person. Okay, so I want a car, but I never want to have to take it to get maintained. I never want to have to fill it up with gas. I want a relationship. I want a marriage, but I don't want to have to actually talk to them. I don't want to have to actually build a bond. We want to recognize how ridiculous that is. That's not how life works. That's not how order and chaos and drive works. Oh, I love what I have. I just don't like to sell it. Bull crap. It's not true. I love what I have. I just don't like what it exposes about how I feel about me when I have to sell it. I'll say that again because this is critical. I love what I have, but I don't like what it exposes about me when I've got to sell it. That's one of the reasons we sell. There are few things that expose the crap you hide, the crap you bury, the crap you dig down than sales. It's awesome. That's why relationships are selling. Raising kids is selling. All the most important things in our lives is selling. Going to church is selling. We're trying to sell ourselves and others on the idea of following God or whatever it might be. It's all selling. And when we do it, it exposes things in us that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. That's why I love it. That's why I love sales. It's the highest form of connection to others and to ourselves. And it is simply an exchange of value. Let's get back to the cows and the milk and the chicken and the eggs. Look at your product. Look at your service. Look at just the idea you want people to buy so that it can help them in their lives, whether you make money from it or not. And be ready to bring it into the arena. Be ready to be tested. Be ready to be exposed, but don't make it about selling. That's a cop-out. Oh, I'm just not a salesperson. I just don't like sales. No, I invite you to understand what it is you don't like to be exposed. You don't like to be challenged, at least not in this area. So don't try to blame it on sales. You're going to miss the opportunity for you to grow, to become incredibly better. All right? We talked about highest form of connection. We talked about it's a simple exchange of value. Next one is that sales is a partnership, and you're going to want that partnership later. Okay? The reason why is because there's a reason that in every major company, the department you send people to after you sell them something is called fulfillment. The process someone goes through after you sell them something is called fulfillment, meaning philosophically and fundamentally and functionally, that is the goal. We should be able to create a process of connection, accountability, clarity. And yes, that sometimes means you've got to have tough conversation with someone else because you're willing to set your fears and doubts aside and make it about them and be able to show up and challenge them to move past their stuff. Sometimes the greatest service you can give someone, regardless of what service you provide, is selling them something of value, having them work through their fears and their doubts about doing that, which you can't do if you don't see it as connection, if you don't see it as a simple exchange of value, so it can be simple and pure and beautiful, and you're not willing to create a partnership that requires understanding each other's perspective and each other's pain, requires you to listen. Listening is the almighty power of sales. Knowing how to really listen. But if you have a problem with selling, you struggle with it, what you've perceived at selling, and you've gone through the checklist and you're like, okay, I accept that. I am going to work that in from the concept to the context of sales is a high form of connection. I'm going to buy into what Paul's saying. I'm going to bring that into the arena with me. I also believe that it is an exchange of value. I'm going to open my eyes to more value than just I'm getting money from this person. There's no leverage. There's no, I'm just trying to use them to get something. You might have thoughts like that, but observe them, let them go. That's okay. Everybody's human. But we're going to start seeing the simplicity of that value in that exchange, and we're going to start developing this partnership. And you're going to start going through this. You're going to buy into this stuff. You're going to start to challenge this. You're going to start to use this. You're going to start to trust this. And if you still struggle, this is the reason why. Because you are evaluating, not listening. There is an exceptional difference between evaluating someone, which requires you to hear them, and actually listening to someone. And I'm going to give you one of the greatest secrets I have ever shared in sales ever. You ready? We listen to people so that they can hear themselves. We listen to people so they can hear themselves. We want to hear them, of course. We want to be able to ask to tell me more about that. We want to ask questions about what they're actually sharing. However, the greatest power of holding space for someone else, of finding their pain, is for them to experience it in a safe place with a safe person so they can experience it without needing to defend it. Experience without needing to hide it or bury it. You show up safe. You show up clear. You show up in a attitude of partnership, and you really listen. The most powerful thing that occurs, as we've heard, is they sell themselves. But the only way you can sell yourself is if you can hear yourself. So if you're looking for the comeback, if you're looking for the overcoming their objection, if you're looking for the amazing question, you're missing the opportunity for them to actually hear themselves. And when that happens, it's no longer asking for a sale. It's just, let me tell you how this works. Let's go. But you've got to earn the right to get to that point. You've also got to have the integrity and the clarity to realize when people aren't ready to be there with your product or your service. And that's totally okay. Man, the amount of time and energy people spend investing in how to turn everyone into a potential customer of yours, you could have saved by just empathetically connecting with someone and finding out sooner that it's not the right time or place. Sure, you still will want to authentically connect with them and hold space and not sit there and go, I've been spending 15 minutes with this person. They're not going to buy anything from me. Well, you already lost the game because sales is the highest form of connection. If you don't enjoy connection, a couple of things are going on. One, you're going to want to get that diagnosed and figured out on a clinical level, or two, you just don't have stamina for connection yet. Because I may love the idea of playing a sport, but if I'm really out of shape, I'm not going to enjoy it. But that doesn't mean I hate the sport. That doesn't mean I'm not cut out for the sport. It means I need to work on my stamina. I need to work on getting better at being able to sustain the effort required to be able to be more successful with it. So that's the last piece I wanted to share with you in terms of selling like a coach. The greatest coaches out there, and I believe just like we all sell, we're all coaches in different regards. We're all helping people get to where they want to go to a little bit quicker, a little bit more effectively, avoid some of the potholes and glue buckets we stepped in. That's where coach comes from. That comes from a European town, coach, K-O-C, I believe it is, where the first carriages were ever built. And that's why they were called coaches. were simply designed to take someone from where they were to where they wanted to be a little bit more efficiently. Okay? That's what coaching is. And great coaches listen, not evaluate. Great salespeople listen, not evaluate. Great human beings listen, not evaluate. Because if you're sitting there trying to become self-directed, it's the first measurement in the habit finder. And in the mathematical hierarchy, it is the third most important measurement in the entire assessment. The goal is to become self-directed. The first step to becoming self-directed is hearing yourself. And so if that's your goal, that should be the goal of anyone you sell to and anyone you coach, is for them to become self-directed, which they can't if they can't hear themselves. And that's the gift you're giving them when you actually listen. They hear themselves. And I hear it every day from clients we work with and teach how to do this specifically. Every little step of how to accomplish what I'm telling you about right now, they say the same thing over and over again. Wow, they solved their own problem. Wow, they sold themselves. Wow, they stopped asking me how much it costs. In fact, we did a challenge with a couple of groups lately, and only one out of dozens asked how much their product or service cost before they bought it. And they asked it this way: so how much should I expect to see on my credit card statement? That's a totally different question than how much does this cost? That is, I've already bought this spiritually. I've already bought this philosophically. I'm just curious what I should be anticipating to show up on my credit card statement. That's awesome. That's what sales should feel like. And it requires you to realize that that's not the outcome of everyone. The outcome is high form of connection. That's why it's number one. Build the partnership. Realize the simple exchange of value. Sometimes they don't buy from you, but there's still a tremendous exchange of value and clarity. And then lastly, make sure you listen so they can hear themselves. This takes work. You can't just be like, this sounds like a great idea. Let's go master it in one conversation. No, because that's why we sell. And that's why we sell on purpose. Because we realize we're not selling. We are exposing parts of our own dialogue, parts of our own ego, parts of our own secret desires and secret intentions, unconscious ones too, and challenging them to make it all about someone else, to be able to free ourselves of the shackles of our own doubts, our own fears, our own sabotage, to be able to provide something that before we went in the arena, we knew was worthy. And now we're going into the arena to prove it, even though in the middle of the battle, at any moment, we may feel like it's not. We're going to trust the commitment we made before we entered the arena. We're going to trust that we have something of value that is worthy. And we're going to charge despite the sting of the blade, as Ogmandino said. That's how you sell like a coach. That's how you can't tell the difference between a great conversation and a sale. It comes with practice. You've got to commit yourself to having more conversations with people. That's how you build your stamina. And then as you'll do that, you'll have better conversations. And then when you start having better conversations, you'll start attracting better people to have more conversations with. But that is a progression. You don't get to leapfrog. How do I get to more conversations with better people? Have more conversations, period. And then those will become better conversations. And then suddenly you'll start finding better people. And it's not because suddenly you tapped some gold mine of people. It's because you started bringing their walls down, stepping into their world, and they started showing up as their best self more and more often. In sales, you don't need to find the right people. You just find people and treat them the right way. That's how we sell like a coach. And regardless of what you're selling, that's how I would recommend doing it. Thanks so much for being here for our first kickoff Disrupt Your Week session. I hope this was beneficial to you. I hope you share this out, tag people. Would love to bring as many people in as possible to get an opportunity to participate in this, start seeing their own mind, their own perspective in different ways. Because I don't want you to think the way I think. That's expertise. I don't want to be your expert. I want to be a pattern disruptor, meaning I want you to stop thinking the way you think in the ways that are holding you back. Thanks for being here. Much love. Happy Wednesday. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.